the underlying commodity that gives Bitcoin value is energy. Energy is converted into money in the process of creating Bitcoin. You could make the same argument that we convert our own energy, our human kinetic energy, into money when we work.
Hey folks, Flo here with Blockchain North. We're here at the Canadian Bitcoin Conference in Montreal. Very happy to be here in our own hometown. I'm here with Scott Dedels, who literally wrote a book about Bitcoin, which we're going to get into in a second. But Scott, nice to have you. Why don't you introduce yourself in 30 seconds or less?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I am CEO of a Bitcoin company called Block Rewards. We do Bitcoin compensation services for employers. I'm the host of the Block Reward podcast of the same name, and the author of the Tao of Bitcoin.
Well, let's talk about the Block Rewards part of the story first. And what are some of the most significant challenges that you see employers and employees face that you're trying to address with your business?
Good question. I think first and foremost, it's employers just understanding, one, that it's an option available to them, and two, then, that why employees would want to do this. And three, I think that where it gets really exciting is when companies will start to understand that Bitcoin presents an opportunity to be different, to be forward-thinking, and really to provide staff with something of real value.
How do employers react if you approach them? You must be doing a lot of BD, a lot of business development. I mean, I'm curious what the range of reactions you get is.
Yeah, I think employers are right to have some consternation or concern about the legitimacy of Bitcoin. And so, for pre-coiners or people who just don't know a lot about it, anytime you start thinking about incorporating something like that into an employment arrangement, you might be worried, and that's where we spend most of our time, is just trying to, Bitcoin not crypto, why Bitcoin might be something that can be entered into compensation alongside regular cash compensation, and it's the ultimate tool for savings. So.
And what do you see as the future of Bitcoin in Canada, but particularly in the retirement savings plans and benefit space?
I think as Bitcoin continues to be the best performing asset ever, it is just naturally going to consume a larger and larger portion of both portfolios and the mind space of people planning for the future.
That's quite powerful, and I can ask you 5 different questions just on that last point. But you wrote a book, and that is in and of itself an achievement. Anyone who's written a book, and I haven't, knows that and has told us that. But it's also really, really unique in the sense that it's kind of a blend between the philosophy, in this case, the Tao or Taoism, let's say, and Bitcoin. I mean, how did you come up with connecting those two seemingly very different worlds?
I've been studying Taoism most of my adult life, and I spent some time living in China when I was younger, teaching English. And learning more about Bitcoin, I think that, part of understanding Bitcoin is understanding how it works and the history of money and central banking. And then there's also the why it works. And I think this is where there is a current of Bitcoin thinkers, and there's Bitcoin in the Bible, there's Bitcoin and Hinduism. There's a lot of different people making spiritual connections to what Bitcoin does. Because Bitcoin, beyond fixing money, is a way that changes the way people interact with each other. And, to give you a 10-second summary of it, I think that Bitcoin is money that allows us to operate in the world in a way that is harmonious and community-oriented, because broken money is a problem that just makes us all fend for ourselves. And when we are constantly in this battle of financial self-survival, it's very difficult for us to be true altruists. And so Bitcoin is a money that is in harmony with the way I think is sort of universal law.
That's fascinating. And yeah, it's true that if you think about money, you would imagine that it's a tool that is there for the people. It's run by governments that we elect. So you'd think that, of course, it's there to serve our interests and our aspirations, our ambitions. And yeah, if you think about what it really does, then yeah, it's quite different than that. Can you explain the concept of energy money? The first time I heard that term used was Michael Saylor, who's a lot about thermodynamics, but could you sort of break it down and maybe explain it to folks who, really have never, ever thought about even money as energy?
Yeah, so literally speaking, Bitcoin is intrinsically linked to energy because of the provable amount of energy consumed in mining each Bitcoin block.
Right.
And so, you could make a very strong argument that the underlying commodity that gives Bitcoin value is energy. The energy is converted into money in the process of creating Bitcoin. And then, you could make the same argument that we convert our own energy, our human kinetic energy, into money when we work. And so it makes sense that an exchange of energy, an exchange of money is an exchange of energy. And in the case of, the literal, we're exchanging money where there has been energy required in creating it. And in the sort of metaphysical, it is our personal life force that has gone into earning the money that we're giving someone else for something that they have also turned, energy into effort.
That is, again, fascinating, and we could go very long on that alone. But being here at the Canadian Bitcoin Conference, this is our first time. It's not the first time. I think it's the second for the event itself. It was in Toronto last year. The first thing that struck me is how vibrant, how much energy, there is upstairs. And, for folks who are not at the event right now, there is a sort of a plenary session, a theater style with, maybe 400 people. But then there is also an exhibition hall where you are exhibiting. And that room is like just really, really loud and, very energetic. What does that tell us about the state of the Bitcoin economy in Canada?
I mean, the community is unreal. I think you've never seen anything like a Bitcoin event until you witness one yourself. And I feel like in terms of understanding the inertia behind this movement and what it is, it really is something that has to be experienced firsthand. So I think, Canada is fertile ground for Bitcoiners for a number of different reasons. One of them is our money has been, is doing worse at its job than other places like the United States, for example. So,
but a lot better than in many other places.
That's right.
Is that fair?
Yeah, that's totally fair. But yeah, I think so. I think that as the cost of living in Canada is getting away from Canadians, it's creating a growing interest in curiosity in what Bitcoin might do and how it might help the problem.
I want to ask you a challenging question because I feel like you're completely up for it. And again, you wrote a book, maybe not the book, but certainly one, and you seem to be, having reflected on Bitcoin, very deeply. So one of the things I see as someone who's focused on blockchain, we're blockchain north, and I know at a conference like, the Canadian Bitcoin Conference, it could be, something that people, frown upon perhaps, but we are who we are. What I wonder is when I look at Bitcoin, it sometimes feels a little bit, I don't know, and it's like sectarianism, or it feels a little bit like a closed off community, right? Whereas, of course, it's also growing, and I think it wants to welcome the whole world into Bitcoin, right? So how do those two sort of dynamics that are, kind of opposing work? I mean, how will Bitcoin really continue to grow and welcome the world to its space, or the other way around, convert the rest of the world, if indeed there is at least a certain cohort within Bitcoin who are, tribal maybe is a better word?
Sure. I think it's important that Bitcoiners are uncompromising in helping other people understand what makes Bitcoin different from everything else. Yeah. And it is a one-time invention of creating scarcity online. So blockchain, I think that is a different technology. And where the confusion happens is because Bitcoin uses blockchain technology.
And invented it.
That's right.
As far as I understand.
But Bitcoin is a technology for proving scarcity online. And the internet, I think, is an innovation that came before Bitcoin that is an information network. So on that information network, sharing things infinitely is something that has created a whole new era of human civilization. But what was required to be layered on top of that is a way to transact payments securely, finally, and with a currency that is immune to
tampering.
Yes, totally. And so that is Bitcoin, and that is only Bitcoin. So I think that it's more about when the Bitcoin ethos can come across as uncompromising, it's partly because it's a confusing space with a lot of information, and even people who know a lot about Bitcoin have differing opinions about what it is and what it does. And so I think zeroing in on these really small parts is the benefit, even if sometimes it comes across as a little bit prickly.
Wow, you explained it really, really well. And to be clear, I mean, we are Blockchain North, but Bitcoin is definitely our favorite token. I think I can say that online. And I think what's really interesting is the fact that, it's the fact that it's been working for, 15 years now, uninterrupted, without a glitch, that it is the most powerful, online network, or digital network, I should say, in the world right now. And that also it hasn't truly been challenged. I mean, yes, we have Ethereum and other, let's say, significant token networks, but at the same time, none of them has displaced Bitcoin. In fact, Bitcoin continues to grow, right? So that in and of itself is very, very impressive.
Yeah, Bitcoin is this really interesting intersection of technology and sort of the immutable laws of economics.
Yeah.
And this is where I think what we will just see over time is there's technology doing things that have never been done before, and that will happen forever. But the rules of supply and demand and scarcity and some of these bigger ideas are much, much older and kind of also eternal.
Yeah.
And so scarcity, we live in the age of infinite everything. And so scarcity and having scarcity exist in a digital world is really something that might not seem that sexy, but it's a game-changing innovation that can only happen one time.
Wow. Well, I was already convinced, but I'm a little bit clearer even now on the value of Bitcoin. So Scott, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me on.